Hello everybody. I made a video about 2.5 weeks ago, and I've been talking about this for years, talking about the plane of inertia, the torus, and the hyperboloid. And of course, every field in the universe actually works off of the right-hand rule. If you don't know what the right-hand rule is, you could do a Google search on the right-hand rule. You'll end up with thousands of images and countless thousands of explanations, and I was actually talking about the plane of inertia and the torus, which of course forms the centrifugal divergence, the toroidal bubble, which is the true field of the magnet, and of course the conjugate geometry of the universe is the torus and the hyperboloid, respectively. Here I am diagramming out the hyperboloid, which of course is an hourglass shape, which sits 90 degrees to the plane of inertia, and the maximum field throw against the torus, which is 45 degrees. The superimposition of these two are the negative images of one another. Respectively, you actually have the geometries, and there are only 2 dimensions in the universe. People talk about 10 dimensions and 4 dimensions and all sorts of science fiction nonsense, but there are only 2 dimensions in the universe, the dimensions of space, or towards space, literally the creation of space, which is what magnetism gives birth to, shall we say. And of course the dimension of counter space. We could say subspace or counter space, or we could say respectively of the dimensions of Cartesian and anti-Cartesian. But I mean, respectively, who doesn't really matter. Mother Nature doesn't care what silly human beings call it. But here we go again. Of course, the hourglass shape, the geometry of the torus, of the hyperboloid, and the torus against that, and of course the plane of inertia. Um, Interestingly enough, and it's not interesting at all since I've been talking about this for years, there's a new quote-unquote discovery that there are these X-ray chimneys that sit at the 90 degrees to the plane of inertia and 45 degrees to the torus, the donut shape, the torus shape of the magnetic field of the Milky Way and countless other galaxies, of course. Oh, we've discovered X-ray chimneys. This is from Science News. These two towering chimneys, sit at these plumes. They're actually calling them gamma ray bubbles. They're saying that the glowing X-rays extend from the Milky Way relative to the giant bubbles that emit gamma rays. But this, of course, is simply the geometry, and I'll do this and make things a lot more clear here. This long oval here at the center, this in yellow, that's of course the plane of inertia of our galaxy. The yellow is the toroidal, the hyperboloid, respectively. If you connect these two yellow ovals, you'll have, and these should be a lot bigger. I just didn't want to extend it off into the graph. The image here, the hyperboloid of these galactic jets and these quote-unquote X-ray bubbles. The green, of course, we're looking at a cross-section here. We would take a cross-section, cut a donut perfectly in half. Of course, you would be looking at two ovals, two circles, really, that come close. Depends on the size of the donut or how big the hole is in the center. The more powerful it would be if we were to actually talk about the toroidal cross-section of a specific device would depend on, it would be a lot further apart or a larger hole on a more powerful system, because these are the conjugate geometries of the universe, the torus and the hyperboloid, the superimposition of both forming the dimensions of space and counter space, of Cartesian and anti-Cartesian. And the place where life exists is the maximum field throw, and this is so important I have to repeat it twice. Of course, all life sits right here at this thin oval. This sits 45 degrees to the toroidal and 90 degrees to the hyperboloid, or the hourglass shape here, but this is the maximum field throw against both the toroidal and the hyperboloidal conjugate geometries of force and motion, and inertia and acceleration. Now let's take a look at, this is from Electrical Discharges, Waves, and Impulses, written by Charles Proteus Steinmetz. The book is 103 years old. This is the most important geometry in the universe. These circular lines, of course, they're complete, but they just go off the page here. They would continue. This is from a 103-year-old book written by the true wizard, the true genius, even more so than Tesla, on field theory. The true genius, Charles Proteus Steinmetz. these non-broken lines form a cross. You're looking at a cross-section here. You're looking at the exact same cross-section as we're looking at here. I'll actually put both of these side by side. You could actually see I could superimpose these as the cross-sections. Yeah, right there. You can see it. I think you can see it. Anyway, this is the electrical field circuit. In other words, if you have two power lines, AC current running outside your house, which of course you probably do, this is the field current that exists between those two wires. The dotted lines are the lines of the dielectric. The solid lines are the lines of magnetic flux. And where these intersect, this is the conjugate geometry of the entire universe. The entire universe follows this geometry. If you want to make it a little bit more clear here for you, let's do that. Let's make it a little more clear. Here we have the exact same diagram. Here you can actually see the hyperboloid or the hourglass shape in red. This is and you see the red arrows are pointing inwards. This right here would be the let me see, tools, annotate. Let's make an oval, except let's make it purple and fat, right? Right here, we would this would be counter space, not there. There we go. Let's move it a little bit, and not so easy to move. Right here. The center of the storm, the eye of the hurricane, where the weather is so beautiful, you know, it's like a 200-mile-an-hour winds in the hurricane, but when you reach the eye, everything is perfect. This purple plane, of course, is the plane of inertia, this long oval out here. The centrifugal divergent arrows here in green are, of course, the vectors of the creation of space. These are the vectors of magnetism. This is what fascinates people about magnets, is the field that is ab extra to the physical device itself. These large green ovals, almost circles, of course, are the cross-section of the toroidal field of the magnet. Also to the cross-section of the toroidal field of our galaxy and countless other galaxies. This is the conjugate geometry of the universe: force and motion, inertia and acceleration, the hyperboloid of counter space, increasing inertia and acceleration. Centrifugal divergence here measured, shown in green, excuse me. The centrifugal divergence, the creation of space itself. Space is the after effect of a divergent magnetic field. To say magnetism and to say the creation of space is one and the same thing. Time, of course, only manifests when we actually have the motion of bodies. Time itself is not a thing. Time is a measure of the passing and movement of magnitudes. This is the reason why time has always been the number 4 from all ancient cultures and does not exist in the Fibonacci sequence. The Fibonacci sequence is 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. The numbers missing there between 1 and 5 are 4 because time doesn't exist. Time is a measure of magnitudes. But let's not go too far in discussing time. Anyway, this is the geometry of the entire universe right here, and this field circuit is the most important diagram in the entire universe. If advanced aliens were to land, to let them know that we're more than ignorant cavemen, the only thing we would actually have to show them is this field circuit of the conjugate geometry of the universe. They'd know at least that we're not super wise, but certainly we're not beating each other in the head with clubs. Well, I guess we are still doing that, actually, so. But anyway, let's go over here. We could also superimpose a magnet in white right here. We could say this is the magnet. This is also the cross-section of the field circuit of a magnet, the plane of inertia, which you can see here. And I show this plane of inertia using magnetic viewing film in my video here. Let me see. Here we go. You could actually see the plane of inertia right there. You see? You can see that. It's very, very evident. Let's go back to this diagram. So this plane of inertia of the magnet, which is outlined in white, the yellow of the centrifugal divergence, the magnetic field, which extends ab extra to the magnet, the green hyperboloid, if you connect these two, of course, they're the hourglass shape. We should actually bring up an hourglass diagram here to make things a little more simple. I had an hourglass shape. Where did it go? There we go. Sorry about that. There we go. Here you can see things in simple. Mother Nature is really simple. She's not simplex. But the universe is extremely elegant. Unfortunately, scientists today make it look extremely unelegant. They make it look abysmal. And we see the passage of sands. Of course, the hourglass of Mother Nature, the sands would be both be pouring in from both sides towards here at counter space. The indivisible center of a magnet, like the hourglass, is utterly devoid of measure, time, space, or force. It's literally the antithesis of all measure, time, and space. It is the projective point, the anti-Cartesian or non-Cartesian locus, or the axis mundi, from which force and motion manifest. When force and motion are manifest, we have the creation of space, and we have space. We have bodies. We actually have time. We have magnitude and the movement of magnitudes. Discharge and charge. Force and motion, inertia and acceleration. Everything's capacitance, resistance, magnetic permeability, and dielectric permittivity. That is as simple as it gets. The conjugate geometries of force and motion and inertia and acceleration. Like I said, we can actually outline a magnet over top of this hourglass as I have in this white triangular box. This is the cross-section of the field geometry, the conjugate field geometry. Of course, the centrifugal divergence, i.e. the magnetic field, would be here at the black arrow vectors, which are, of course, pointing out on the ends of this. This could be a bar magnet, this white outline here. These white ovals, of course, are the hyperboloidal increasing inertia and acceleration towards the plane of inertia. Once again, the conjugate geometry of the universe. Undeniable and 100% the most simplex and fundamental geometry of the entire universe. Irrefutable and undeniable. Let's do another cross section here. Also, too, this is the same geometry of the field lines of an AC current. This yellow cross here is a power line cross going down your backyard. These red swooping lines would be the power lines. This is the cross the cross section of the field geometry of an AC power line going down your backyard. This is also the cross section of a permanent magnet. You have stable conjugate system geometry of force of motion, inertia, and acceleration. Also, too, undeniable. The black image over here on the left side is literally iron filings of an AC current. Here you can actually see the swirling magnetic lines, and they actually, and it looks like an owl's face. And of course, over here on the right, we actually have the outline of a magnet in red. The plane of inertia, we're looking at, of course, the cross-section of a torus, or a donut. We have circular, radiative, spatial, and dielectricity. We actually have centripetal, radial, inertial, and movement towards counter space, or we could say subspace, zero space, non-Cartesian or anti-Cartesian. I really don't care what human beings call it. It doesn't make any difference. And once again, to drive the point home even further, the cross-section of a magnet here in this thin blue line, the hyperboloidal geometry, the toroidal geometry of the plane of inertia here in white, the cross-section of the magnetic centrifugal divergent geometry here in red, and of course the plane of inertia here as a yellow oval at the center. No different than our galaxy or any other galaxy. Here you can see galactic jets actually exercising geomagnetic precession, just like a precessing top. You've seen a top, once you spin it up, starts to precess. These galactic jets, of course, spit out, as we've seen countless times, countless thousands of times from other galaxies, are spitting out trillions and trillions of tons of hydrogen. And they exit the center of these galaxies and they emit them almost at nearly the speed of light. But of course, the speed of light is not a speed; it's a rate of induction. Here you can actually see the exact same geometry. This is the geometry of the universe. This hyperboloidal, this plane of inertia. We can't see the magnetic, but of course the magnetic exists around these as the cross-section of the torus, respectively, of the geometry of the universe and of all systems. Also, too, this goes from macro to micro. It goes from the subatomic all the way to the galactic. This field geometry is from both galactic in size to subatomic in size. It permeates the entire universe from every angle and from every position. It is both irrefutable and undeniable. So this, from electrical discharges, waves, and impulses, from the genius, a little person, Charles Proteus Steinmetz, from 100 and let's see now, it was 103 years ago, I believe. This is the geometry. I could superimpose this over this. It is the exact same geometry of everything. It's the geometry of a field circuit. It's the field geometry of a magnet. It's also to the field geometry of galactic jets, galaxies, and everything, of course, exists along this plane of inertia. Right here. Let's do this over here. And let's put this over here. The superposition of both of these, as you can see. Yeah, I think you could see it, right? Irrefutable, undeniable. I went a little too far over that way. There we go. The new Mac operating system. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this video. If you do, check the link below, and I'll catch you later.